back to Beyond the Boundary Road. I'm Jadine Croft, and joining me is language researcher Des Crump. Hey Des.
Hello again.
So thanks for joining us, Des. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
That's good. So interpreting language between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians has gone through a long process of trial and error. Des and I will discuss the importance of interpretation. Start off, what sort of benefits would the local community have if legal documents were written in their own language, and who do you think could be the right person to translate it?
Okay, well, first of all, one of the things to remember is that it wasn't that long ago that Aboriginal language, and certainly even Aboriginal English, was allowed in a court of law to provide evidence for any Aboriginal people who are trying to defend themselves. So it's only been a recent thing that Aboriginal English has been accepted, but then there's also a need to translate and interpret defendants and statements given by Aboriginal people so that the court and the jury have a better understanding of the language, but also, more importantly, the meaning behind what is being said, because sometimes the way things are spoken in Aboriginal communities, Torres Strait Islander communities, there may be a different meaning that doesn't get picked up in a court of law.
Yeah, so how important do you think it is to have a language interpreter during social and professional matters?
Oh, very important, because in some states, so Northern Territory and Western Australia, for example, they actually have a translating and interpreting service that includes Aboriginal languages and Creole languages across the northern end. But Queensland doesn't have that sort of, I guess, resource available for court cases and for legal documents. And I think it's important that communities have that opportunity to identify people within their communities who have the language knowledge and the expertise to assist in the translation and the interpreting of particularly legal documents, because it is written in a lot of jargon that many people, particularly Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people, have difficulty in understanding.
Yeah. So Des, can you tell us the difference between Aboriginal English and Standard English?
Well, there's quite a lot of Aboriginal Englishes across Australia. There's not one Aboriginal English, and it varies from community to community. And so some communities, for example, it's very much closer to the traditional language than it is to the English. And so for example, in Aboriginal English, there's not always a question. If people were asking a question in Aboriginal English, they might lift their voice at the end of the sentence, or sometimes they might say "a" at the end. So, for example, if someone was asking if you've been to a particular town, they might say, "Oh, you've been go Cairns, eh?" and as a question. And the other parts that come into Aboriginal English, there's no plurals. Sometimes they don't even differentiate between whether it's a male or female, he, she that they're talking about. There's no plurals. Sometimes they might be talking about a lot of dog, hey, without really having an S or anything like that to be picked up by a standard Australian English speaker as, they're talking about a lot of dogs.
Yeah. So, Des, can you tell us a bit more about the Rio Tinto language integration that's happening on Groote Island?
Yeah, that's an example of a great software program where the mining company on Groote Island have worked in with the local community and developed up a resource that, I guess, it works two-way, because it's part of the induction process for the Rio Tinto workers when they come to work on Groote Island, so that they've got a basic understanding of the language, particularly some of the, I guess, the warning language, where if they have to work alongside someone from the community, there's that health and safety issues around that machinery. And if they're giving out instructions or safety warnings in English, then it has to be translated by the Aboriginal person into their own language, and by that time it could have resulted in an accident. And so the language app, it actually gives them the verbal command, but also if there's a hand gesture or a sign language to go with that command as well, so that they can give those instructions visually as well as orally.
So, Des, do you think the government, do you think they should run trials of Indigenous languages across the state?
I think so. I think there's already some language programs happening in schools and the local communities, and particularly now with the Australian curriculum in Aboriginal languages and Torres Strait Islander languages, a few schools that are keen to come on board and be part of a trial process. I guess the thing with any trial, it needs to be resourced, so there needs to be that support for the local community, so that they've got the knowledge, the skills and the training to be part of that program, to help with the writing up of curriculum, lesson programs, but more importantly for them to be part of the teaching and learning processes that go on in the schools.
Yeah. So Des, what about the importance of having an Aboriginal council?
Well, I guess in terms of languages, it's always good if there's some sort of council or reference group that has a say in how languages are being taught or being revived in the community, and it gives you that, I guess, that first point of contact, but it also means that there's the community having a say in, first of all, how their language is going to be spoken, written down, how it's going to be spelt, who's going to be involved in the teaching, who has the final say on any new words that might be created, because there is a need to develop new words and new language, because language is always changing. So it's important that the community have the final say on that.
So Des, to finish off, do you mind telling us some words in Aboriginal English used in the Gamilaroi language?
No, certainly. There's a couple where we didn't have a language word for, so we've used Aboriginal English words, and some of them we don't have the sound. So, for example, for tea leaf, we say D-lip, and so D for tea, gubby for coffee, because we didn't have any F sounds, milgan for milk, and then for cow, because milk comes from a cow, it's Milganbri.
Okay. Interesting. So that's all we have time for today, but thank you so much, Des, for being on the show.
Oh, thanks again.
It's great having you. So next week, we'll explore the relationships between health and language. Stay with Beyond the Boundary Road after this break.